Hello everyone, my name's DrLauren-Jane. I'm a junior doctor. I'm currently in F2. I'm working in obs and gynae at the moment and I want to be a surgeon. So this video is about whether you can be a doctor, any kind of doctor, if you don't have good grades or any form of qualifications at the moment. So the answer in a nutshell is absolutely you can. It depends very much on kind of your motivation, your focus and your commitment and how you go about strategizing that entrance into medicine. So I have very modest grades myself. Initially at GCSE I opted to do applied science, which is all kind of the COSH laboratory sort of stuff. It's not the academic biology, chemistry, physics that you need to be a doctor. Unfortunately, I had to move schools during this period because I was bullied really badly. And at my new school, I did switch on to doing academic subjects, but I got very maudest grades. So we're talking B's and C's all over. I went to do my A-levels, I dropped out, and then I worked for a few years. And then at that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do, thought perhaps I'd like to be a teacher. So I went on to do an access to teaching course. From this point, I decided I didn't want to be a teacher after all, but I'd like to go to university. So I went and did a theology degree at the University of Nottingham. Halfway through that process, I decided that I wanted to be a doctor. I thought I wanted to be a psychiatrist at that point. Started looking at the process. Because I already had a degree, I was in the process of having a degree. I was then able to enter the GEM programme, so that's graduate entry medicine, with having passed the Gumset, which is an exam which I'll make another video about at some point. So that was how I got into medicine, having very modest grades. It is a circuitous route, because obviously at the beginning I wasn't thinking about doing medicine. It took a long time. We're talking a lot of years, a lot of hard work and a lot of investment in the process on my part, but it is completely doable. And if you are a person who is sitting here thinking, do you know what, I am kind of around, past or around university age, or even if you've just done your GCSEs and A-levels and you think, do you know what, my grades aren't great, it can be done. So let's start. What I want to do is I want to start at kind of every point and try and work out where you are and try and find a solution for you as to how you could go into medicine if you want to. So if you're a person who's just taken your GCSEs and they're not great, what you need to do probably is you need to make sure that your A-levels are really good. If your GCSEs aren't fantastic, then you might need to, probably the best thing to do is get advice from your careers advisor, but it might be that you should apply for med school anyway. If you don't get in, you could always do something like a biomedical sciences degree and then in place of this theology degree that I do, and then potentially you could take a graduate entry medicine course. These courses are offered all over the country and they run in 4 years rather than the 5. So you train to be a doctor slightly quicker than the average undergraduate. I loved my GEM course. I really recommend it really highly. I think it gave me really great training to be a doctor. So if that's kind of where you are, make sure that you do really well for your A-levels. I know that's easier said than done, but just make sure that you have the right resources. So Khan Academy provide really good resources for things like biology, chemistry and physics. This also applies to anyone who's doing the Gumset. I really recommend them for a basic understanding of some of the subjects. Talk to your careers advisor. If you're struggling with things like biology or chemistry and you want to be a doctor, go and talk to your tutors, because they often really want to support people, but not everyone in your environment wants to work extra hard. Some people just want to pass, so they won't necessarily assume that you need the extra help or support or that you have this specific goal in mind. So just by going to your, say, science teacher, your biology teacher, and saying, I want to achieve this grade, can we work backwards? Can you assess me on extra projects, things like that? I'm sure that they would be enthused to kind of work with you to trying to work towards that goal. Most teachers really want to share their kind of love of a subject with people, and I think sometimes as students we forget that they aren't plugged into our thought processes, and if you go to them and ask for help, they often will offer you extra help. So if your A-levels haven't gone quite the way that you wanted them to, you can apply through clearing. If not, again, it might be better to look at doing something like a biomedical sciences degree, something like that, and then looking at the prospect of a graduate entry medical course once you have that biomedical sciences degree. You can also do another good degree. I have the theology degree. However, if you're really kind of set on doing medicine, having a background in biomedical sciences will help you, because when you get onto the GEM course, you will already have a great basis in that knowledge. And actually when you apply, it shows that you're committed to this kind of subject, and all you have to justify is why you want to kind of progress from that to this, why you want to be a doctor rather than be a laboratory technician or whatever. So as long as you can justify that, you're already kind of displaying your commitment to the healthcare and the sciences industry by having a biomedical sciences degree. If you are a person who is slightly older, like I was when I first went to medical school, and you have a degree in something that's completely unrelated, what your kind of A-level and GCSE results probably a bit less relevant than anyone else's, because you've already got a degree. So if you've got a degree in, say, English literature or history, and you've decided that you want to be a doctor, it's completely doable. You will have to go and do the Gumset. So the Gumset requirements from your university are kind of decided by the university. They're not standardised. So I went to Nottingham for mine. What they introduced, I think the second year that I applied, is if you have a 2-1 degree, you need a slightly lower Gumset score than if you have a 2-2. So passing the Gumset is really hard. It's a 5-hour exam, which is obviously broken up, and you need to be in about the top 10 or 20% to get to interview at medical school. But that score will depend at Nottingham anyway on whether you have a 2-1 degree or a 2-2. But like I say, that might not be the case everywhere. So that's how you kind of get in terms of academics. But you also have to think about things like extracurriculars, work experience. So these two things are really important. If you are a person whose grades are not great, then it's really, really good if you can display excellence elsewhere. So I have made a video about work experience, so I won't go on about work experience in this video, but I'd refer you to that work experience video. If you're thinking about going into medicine, I'd say pick up these things sooner rather than later, because the more experience you have, the more committed you look. So if you've been working in a nursing home, volunteering with people for a year or 18 months, that looks much better than saying, well, I've done 6 weeks of this thing. So go and start thinking now about what you can do in terms of building a portfolio for when you go to do your personal statement or where you go to interview. There's also things like extracurriculars that are really useful for your application. Are you good at music? Do you have any kind of grades? You really want things that show some sort of discipline and some sort of escape from medicine, something that you can be interested in other than medicine. So you look like a well-rounded person. Sport, music. If you have any kind of hobbies, think about those sort of things that you can include. In summary, this is kind of a whistle-stop tour of ways that you can go from wherever you are to being a doctor. I've done it, and my grades were absolutely awful when I was at school. I didn't have any focus. I didn't know that I wanted to be a doctor, and that really, really sets you behind. It's much easier if you decide that you want to be a doctor at 15 and you can kind of make sure that your grades are level, your A-level results are level. Because it is easier to do well at something if you are focused and committed and have a goal. And if you're not quite sure what you want to do, it doesn't necessarily, I think, motivate you to go and do an extra hour of biology homework. I love being a doctor. I'd really recommend it. It has been a hard process to go from being on a theology degree without really any scientific background at all to passing the Gumset. That took me years to do, and going through medical school initially was very, very difficult for me because I just didn't have those pegs to pin the knowledge onto. However, it's doable. I've done it. I love being a doctor. I tried to make this video as general as possible because I wanted to try and speak to lots of different people in different parts of life. If you have any specific questions that you want to ask me, you're welcome to put comments on this video. You can also follow me on Instagram. I'm happy to take questions. So thank you very much for watching. Bye.